Okay, I think I figured out what's going on here. So see how all the edges, when I select, they're all pretty bright. That means that um, this thing it needs to be cleaned up basically. That see, they should look this light. But I think when they're all like this, it means that let's set this to face, the mesh display, set it to face. It shouldn't take this long. Okay, so we need to clean this sucker up. Okay, so I had to quit Maya and reopen and import this stuff. So let's try this. Before doing anything to this in terms of even deleting, trying to fix a face, let's go to Mesh, Cleanup, open up the options, and you want to make sure have faces with more than 4 sides on. Operation, select matching polygons, apply to selected objects. You want to have these things on it. Edges with 0 length, normals and geometry, this on. Yes, that's okay. So we'll do that first. Okay. So what that does is sometimes there are, let's say, loose faces that don't have shared edges. And so this basically just gets rid of that and welds everything together. Okay. Now, let's see if I can delete edge vertex. Nope, still doesn't like it. I can do that. Okay. Let's save this before anything. Okay, so the problem I thought it was is still the problem. The cleanup didn't work because we might have to change the tolerance settings. But so you can see what I'm talking about. If I go to vertex mode, just right click and then go to vertex. If I select one of these and then move it, see how it's not connected to the other one? None of these are connected. So these are like all loose individual faces. So let's try going back to cleanup and edges, faces with 0 geometry. No, let's just do this. Let's try merging all the vertices. Where is it? I'm not seeing it. There it is, merge. So just go on merge, click that, and it should be good. So now to verify, if we go back in here, select one of these. There we go. Okay, so now it's all connected. So hopefully this is not going to give us any more problems here. Mesh tools, append to polygon. There we go. So when you click on this, the way that you append to polygons, basically you're clicking on the edges, so it's just going to add a face and merge it to the existing one. As soon as you click on one edge, see the arrows, you always construct counterclockwise. There you go. So once you get 3, just hit enter, and that should be good. And let's just verify. All good. Okay, great. So that's the first thing you want to do. Let's go and look for any holes. I think that was the only one on this one. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to smooth this out a bit. And so the sequence is we're going to go into sculpt mode and use smoothing as well as pinching to begin to kind of reshape or kind of finesse this thing, because it is a bit lumpy. And we did lower the resolution of the faces. So we're going to use that technique to get some of that articulation back. But the key thing is that because we clipped our edge, we don't want this edge to change. And so what we need to do is we're going to use this guy right here to freeze that edge. So I'm going to go, I hope this works. Yes, there we go. This, I wish Blender had this, but so I just double clicked on that face and it selected everything. It basically selected the entire perimeter, which is quite nice. So once I have that, I'm going to go click on this to freeze, and so you'll see that whole edge turned to that blue color. So if I double click on this option, this is the kind of freeze tool settings. So now what we're going to do is we're not going to do anything with that. We're going to go to smooth with the tool settings open. And so you can usually flood works. No, see, flood's not working for some reason. So we're going to do this manually. And you just need to, so if you start brushing on it here, you'll see not much is happening, right? A little bit, but not much. Yeah, so we need to increase the strength quite a bit. So let's go, not size. So size is the size of the brush, so that radius, so it's a 5-foot radius. And then strength, let's just go to 100. Now you can see it working. So it starts to, it basically relaxes the geometry a bit. Oh yes, here's another thing we need to do. Actually, we're going to get out of this. Forgot one thing here to redo. But so every time we get out, so I'm going to go back to object mode. Every time we go back into sculpt mode, you have to refreeze that edge. But before that, let's go to mesh display and set to face. Because these weren't set, that's why it was looking a little lumpier than I think it actually is, because of the display wasn't set to faces. So let this run for a little bit. Okay, there we go. So now it's reset. So I turn off the wireframe. It's a little bit, yeah, it's more even. So you don't have those weird shading going on in the faces. Let's turn that back on. Okay. So now let's go and redo this. Edge, double click, freeze, go to smooth. So you can see how it looks better. You can actually, it looks more accurate. So when you start to brush, you'll see the shading change. So what I like to do is, like for larger areas, we can increase the brush size. Oops, that shouldn't have happened. Yeah, that shouldn't have happened. But so see how it is. So basically that edge shouldn't move. This guy right here, that should stay where it is. Oops, see. So if that happens, doesn't like that area. You just got to undo it and then change the view. So if it's taking away too much of the articulation, we might want to just lessen the strength. That is quite strange. Okay, why is that? Let's see if we can... Nope. Let's try reducing the size. That is very strange. Okay, for some reason it's only happening when I do it from very zoomed out. As I zoom in, it doesn't seem to do it. So we just want to generally get rid of the lumps a bit. So we just kind of work around. Okay, so I'm going to do this all around the model and just kind of clean it up a bit. Okay, so I've got it pretty much good, and it's kind of bizarre because it only does it when I do it in this one area. For some reason, it does not like this one area, but everywhere else it seems to be fine. And I'm not sure what that is. But okay, so this is kind of what it should look like, a little bit smoothed out. Now the next step is we're going to, well, there's a couple things we're going to look at. One is using the pinch tool, and this is something that we'll need to see how it works. Let's try a small one. So we're going to try to get some of these features back in terms of the valleys and ridges. And we want to use the steady stroke on it. So you'll see that as you begin to draw, see how it's pulling the meshes, the edges together. So let's bump up the strength. And let's do it on a ridge here. But you can see how it starts to crease, starts to pinch that out. And so the steady stroke basically, it adjusts your path to make it steady. And so we can begin to pull and get some of that feature back. But before we do that, let's do this. Let's get out of here. We're going to, we should have done this earlier, but it's fine, we can do it now. Close this off. We need to UV map this. So it's going to bring in our image, so we can use the image itself as a guide for where where creases should go and pinches and things like that. So in Maya, to do this, let's go to UV. Let's open up the UV editor. So right now, that's what it looks like, which is not what we want. So we are going to go top view, UV, planar, let's open up those options, Z-axis to project from, bounding box is fine, and then apply. Oh wait, no, that should be fine. There we go. So now this should, basically all your UV should fit in that full square. So that matches how we had it before. Okay, now we don't need that. Now we need to create a material. Okay, so let's open up the Hypershade and going into Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. There we go. So in the Hypershade, I'll make a new one here. We're going to go to Maya, and for now we'll just do a Lambert shader. So click on Lambert. And so this should open up. And then with this thing selected, go here to the color and that little checkered icon and find File. And then you have to go here, click on the folder, then you got to go find that texture map image. And I don't, let me see, do I have it in here? No, I have it somewhere else. I believe it's, yeah, that one, okay. So once you get that on, I already have one. Once we get that, oh shit. Sorry about this. Okay. So here it is. So now we can just, what is the name of this thing? Okay, Bryce Swatch trimmed Lambert. Okay. So then with this thing selected, I can just right click, go assign existing material, and then select that material. No, stop doing that. I'm going to close that out. Okay. Let's go back to perspective. And then we should be able to see it. There we go. If I press 6, it puts on texture mode. Let's get rid of the lines. There we go. So now we've got the image on there. And if you don't have, let's see, 7 is light mode. Yeah. If you don't have a light, you want to see this in controlled lighting, go to rendering, click on this directional light, which is like a sunlight, which I already have one of those. So I'm going to turn mine back on. And you'll probably need to scale it up because it's, you know, our object's quite large, so I just scale it up to 100. And then you don't need to move it, you just need to rotate it to kind of like give it a slight angle like a sunlight. And so there you go. So now this is in that sunlight. Okay, so now with this guy, if we go back to sculpt mode, so remember we have to freeze the edges. So I'm going to double click on that edge, go sculpt, freeze, and then let's go back to pinch tool. There we go. So if I could see like right here, I might want to pinch this guy right in there to use that path. And I'm going to bump up the strength. 500 might be too much, but let's just have a look. Oh yeah, that's way too much. Let's go 200. Is that even too much? That might even be too much. That's pretty good. Okay, so you get the idea. So basically, you go around and start to reshape this guy. And you know, we can look back, toggle between the different modes. So if you want to see really what it looks like. So basically that's okay. So that's that technique. So you can see how it's beginning to reshape it. Oh, I don't like that there. This is too strong. Let's undo all that. Yeah, well, even that's a little too strong. Okay. Okay, that seems better. Yeah, so even that is too strong there. So I would undo all of that and redo it. Nope, did not freeze. Okay, I gotta redo this. Dun, 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 dun. Pinch. $75 and 5. Okay. Okay, that's a little better. And so the bigger, like if we size this, let's make this 10, it will actually, which might be better because it might make it more gradual in terms of pulling more of the faces or edges or influencing more area. But so this is just something that you gotta test out to get a feel for getting the right size and strength to get them to work together. But so you get the idea. Okay, so let's say after you do that for a while, I'm just going to show another thing that you can do. If you wanted to level out some areas, like for example, let's say this area here, I want to kind of flatten this a little bit because it's a bit lumpy. If I had an idea about having this a pathway or something like that. So now what I'm going to do is go to my paint select. That is, so, well, probably the brush is too big. Yeah, I know. So let's go to faces is fine. And I'm going to decrease the size of that. Let's go 100. The autosave. Okay, let's redo that. Okay, so basically you want to be able to get it so that you can control, have some kind of control. And then what we're going to do is use my soft select tool. Oh, it doesn't have it in here. Okay. So we'll do it in the move settings. So I'll get out of there, go to move, open this up and go open up soft select, turn that on, and then you'll see that depending on the number, this is, basically it's a gradient effect of influencing that area. So now if I move those, see how it gradually moves everything, so you get a softer transition. That's kind of what we're looking for. And so I'm probably going to make this fall off a little bit more, so you can, the higher that number, obviously, the deeper influence that'll have. So let's go to 500. So now when I move it, it's much softer. But the other thing we can do is, so if I want to flatten that, I'm going to go to, where is it? Yes, here. So by default, this is on. retain component spacing on the move snap settings. So what that means is if I snap this to any other vertices, if I hit V and then snap that, so see how it's kind of snapping? It's basically using the vertices to snap, right? Let's undo. If I turn that off and then do the same thing, hit V and then do that, it flattens them. It does not retain the component spacing. So now I can snap it to one of these neighboring guys. Or I can come down a little bit lower, so I can create this kind of plateau. So this is quite a nice feature. And so if I did that, but I didn't like this transition, right, I can undo, perhaps increase this a little bit more, and then redo that, and then get a softer transition there. So this gives some good functionality to issues like that, especially on these terrains where, like, it might be that in some of this area I want to flatten or raise or kind of depress a little bit because I'm anticipating cutting into it, or I actually want to detach it and then move it down, which we'll look at those techniques in a bit. But so hopefully this will give you some control, or at least some other options of how to manipulate this guy. Okay, so I'm going to do that as it is. Something else that I noticed here in working on this is that, so while we split the surface in Rhino with that cube, we didn't get a perfectly clean edge. And that might have had to do with the tolerance settings in Rhino. So I've noticed that, like right here, it kind of goes in and out a little bit. So we're going to fix that in Maya. So let's go to top view. And we have to do it one edge at a time. But yeah, you can really see it here. And then we're going to go to edge mode. We're going to click on the very first edge on one side. And then, oh wait, actually, before we do that, let me get out of this. We need to create a locator to snap it to. Because once we're going to select this whole edge and then use that snap setting where everything aligns into one axis, but we need a reference for that because these cannot serve as that reference. So I'm going to go to create locator, and I'm going to hit V, and oh wait, I think it just creates it at the world origin, doesn't it? Yes, there it is. Let's scale that thing up. There we go. So this guy, we're going to move and just snap it. There we go. Just somewhere in the middle, around there. So we just want this snapped to one of these vertices. Okay, great. It doesn't need to be that big, does it? Okay, so now let's go back to top view and select that entire edge. Go into edge, clicking on this one, and then going all the way to this end, hitting shift and double clicking on that. So that'll select everything in between. And then if we go to move, W, there we go. So now we're going to make sure that in our move snap settings, this is deselected. We're in world. Then I'm going to hit V, and that should snap right there. And now everything's aligned. Perfect. Okay, so now let's do. We're going to do this. I'm going to do the same thing for all the other edges. So I'm just going to move that to that middle point there. double click, hit a move, hit V to snap to vertice, and there we go. Okay, so I'm going to do it for the other two edges.